Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Buffalo Bills Center of the West. My name is Eric Rossborough. I am Associate Librarian and Senior Cataloger here at the McCracken Research Library. And once again, we're really thankful for your support and excited about today's program, Lost Buildings of Cody. A little housekeeping. Our next local lore program will be on Thursday, July 17th. The speaker will be Bob Richard, who will educate us on the history of the Frost and Richards families. Okay, today we have a program. Today it's going to be called Historic Preservation of Lost Landmarks in Cody, and we have not one, but three talkers for you. On the right, we have Linda Scheiber. Linda Scheiber is chair of the Park County Historic Preservation Commission and the owner of Bighorn Archaeology. She moved to Cody from Minnesota as a teenager when her family bought Hidden Valley Ranch on the South Fork. She's been practicing as an archaeologist in Wyoming for more than 30 years. She's the author of 3 books and numerous articles on the archaeology and history of the Bighorn Basin. Next to her, we have Susan Fletcher, my boss. She is the Housel Director for the McCracken Research Library. Susan previously served as Director of History and Archives for the Navigators in Colorado and archivist at the Dixon Research Center at Lee University. She's written 4 books. Her most recent book is called Exploring the History of Childhood and Play Through 50 Historic Treasures, which earned a spot on Booklist magazine's top 10 books of the year. Proud daughter of the Rocky Mountain West, Susan Fletcher, and next to her we have Brian Beauvais, curator of the Park County Archives. Brian has published numerous articles in publications like Annals of Wyoming, focusing on such topics as the history of poaching in Wyoming, artist Olive Fell, and the history of mining in the Cody area. He's also a member of the Park County Historic Preservation Commission, and he spends a great deal of time exploring the area. I know because I've seen him out there. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Laura, Susan, and Brian.
I just wanted to take an opportunity to thank all of you for coming out today. May is National Historic Preservation Month, so happy Preservation Month, everybody. So just wanted to thank Laura and Brian for joining me.
Great. Thank you. Oh, right.
Oh. We'll have to, yeah. One moment, please. We'll get our slides together here. We'll start the slideshow.
Start the slideshow.
I'm curious, who has lived in Cody the longest? Do we have any people who have lived here for more than 50 years? More than 60 years? More than 70 years?
Oh,
More than 75 years?
maybe they should be the ones giving the talk.
You're more than 75? More than 80 years? I think you win. I think you're the longest resident of Cody here today.
Awesome. Thank you. Now we'll get this maybe working. Oh, so that was what it did. Dang it. Don't press escape. That's not the volume.
Who's the newest resident of Cody? Who's been here for less than a year?
Okay.
We have a couple people.
We're going to do
Who's
this.
been here for like 6 months? All right, you are the newest resident of Cody back there. So we have,
Yay.
awesome. Let's press the side
Yes.
one.
Yes, the side one. All right, so we are speaking as the Park County Historic Preservation Commission. There are 7 of us total on the commission. We were appointed by the Park County Commissioners. So we're one of a number of boards that the Park County Commissioners are responsible for, and so we are under that umbrella group. So Brian Beauvais, Susan Fletcher, and myself, Laura Scheiber, are giving this presentation in part because our other members are not necessarily available. But Miranda Bickford, who works at the Heart Mountain Interpretive Center, Dan Shine and Franz Gretton are both are both retired, and for some reason Brandy Wright is not on here. And Brandy Wright is the director of the Homesteader Museum in Powell. So if you haven't heard of us before, the kinds of initiatives or mission that the Park County Historic Preservation Commission has, we keep a list of historically significant properties in Park County across the entire county, in Cody and Meeteetse and Powell and other areas. We are also we are a certified local government who has the ability to nominate properties to the National Register of Historic Places. And we also provide information and education to interested landowners and organizations, like the City of Cody, for instance, to help with preservation needs and potentially developing historic preservation plans. Dang it. Oh, I didn't do the escape. And now Susan will.
So you guys might have heard of the National Register of Historic Places, which is the official list of the nation's historic places deemed worthy of preservation. So this was started in 1966 under the National Historic Preservation Act to coordinate and support public and private efforts to identify, evaluate, and protect America's historic and archaeological resources. So you may have also heard of National Historic Landmarks. Those are actually two different lists. National Historic Landmarks are places of national importance. So those would have nationally significant themes. And we have some of those in Park County, and we have some regular properties on just the list of historic places, which is also quite an honor. So this is a GIS map that you can find on the Park County Archives website that Brian manages. This is a map of some of those properties that are on the register. So you can see that they're spread all throughout Park County. And then we have a closer in view of some of the properties closer in here to Cody. So you can see that some of those include the Buffalo Bill Dam, Coulter's Hell, the Buffalo Bill Boyhood Home. So you guys can go outside in the garden and the museum and see Buffalo Bill's childhood home while you're here today. A number of other places as well, including the Irma Hotel. Other notable sites include the Wapiti Ranger Station, which is on the National Landmark list. That's a pretty big deal. The Absaroka Mountain Lodge, the Hayden Arch Bridge, which was constructed in 1924, and the Clay Butte Outlook. This is a list of the Downtown Cody Historic District and Irma Hotel. So the Historic District of Cody was added to the National Register, I believe, in 1983. And a description from the nomination says that Downtown Cody Historic District contains historically significant buildings primarily dating from 1900 to the 1930s. So after we're done today, you guys can take a stroll through downtown and see some of the buildings on the register. The ones in pink are listed on the National Register of Historic Places, and the ones that are not in pink aren't listed. So in historic districts such as this, structures can be contributing and non-contributing, and that just depends on that particular history of that building, the intactness, several different factors. But you can see that the Irma Hotel is on the register. That was actually listed in the 1970s and has been part of that for a long time. And then the City of Cody has designated the Downtown Cody Architectural District as well, which you can see here in yellow. And here are some pictures of downtown Cody from the register nomination in the 1980s. So you can see that downtown has changed a little bit, but we can also recognize several buildings that are still intact. So Brian is going to tell you a little bit more about some myths of the National Register.
So we regularly hear points of confusion about the National Register, buildings that get on the National Register. And we want to clear some of that confusion up so the register isn't like a boogeyman who's here to sort of bring down the hammer on private property owners. One is that getting on the National Register ensures perpetual protection. It does not. Designation might help bring about a more thorough review of demolition proposals, but it does not prohibit demolition altogether, right? So the irrigation office over in Powell was listed on the National Register. It was totally demolished. It happens. Some cities and local governments might require certain conditions for demolishing a landmark, but those restrictions are not part of the National Register. Those are purely local ordinances brought about and enforced by local governments. Another is that once something is on the National Register, nothing is allowed to change. The National Register is not meant to prevent change, it's meant to manage change. The register identifies character-defining features of a structure or site, and it ensures those features will not be radically altered, although they can certainly be improved, renovated. I mean, there's a lot. Like for a great example is numerous bridges in Yellowstone are on the National Register. Obviously, you can't have a bridge that's in disrepair. It's super unsafe. You have to be able to make that safe. Getting on the National Register does not hinder regular maintenance work or other changes to historic buildings. At worst, if substantial changes were made so as to undermine the integrity of a building on the National Register, that register listing would simply be withdrawn. And that's all that happens. No one goes to jail, there's no fines, it's not a big commotion. It's just that register listing is no longer in existence. Another is that getting on the National Register means that people will enforce appearance restrictions like on the facade of a building. The National Register does not stipulate that a building has to have a certain appearance or even its sort of exact original appearance. If the building maintains its identified character-defining features, it's all good. And things can change a little bit. You can't change it totally, just radically. And this myth is largely a confusion of the various types of historical designations across the country because the National Register is just an honorary designation that really has no teeth. But some communities have local historical zoning, which Cody does not have, even though we have sort of an architectural district. And those local historical zonings might have certain restrictions on properties. You see these when you go to big cities, sometimes they'll have a historical district. And those can enforce specific appearance restrictions. And this is confusing because often National Register designations and these local zoning restrictions overlap. So people get confused about what is actually imposing the appearance restrictions. It's not the National Register, it's local governments. And preservation is not wholly opposed to progress. Historic preservation cares about the past, but it's not about stopping all changes or always being negative towards new ideas or projects. Sometimes change is needed for communities. Sometimes it breathes new life into an area and it's beneficial. Preservation just encourages everyone to think about retaining the best and most meaningful parts of our built history in order to have a more vibrant community that appreciates its past. And the last myth is that preservation corrodes property values. The opposite is true here. Historic designations give buildings or areas a cachet that other places do not. And it gives property owners economically valuable assurances that they can safely make improvements to their buildings without the fear of wildly inappropriate development, that will not occur and sort of erode the meaningfulness of all the work that they put into their building. So with that being said, now we're going to talk about a few lost landmarks in Cody. We're going to talk about public buildings, we'll talk about commercial buildings, and we'll talk about some houses and residential. I'm going to talk about the first schoolhouse in Cody. Was built as an addition to an existing home made of local sandstone. When Susan asked you to all put your hands up about how long you've lived in Cody, some of you might have gone to school in this. That's right. The building was constructed before the city's streets were even surveyed, so it ended up sort of sitting on the corner of Alger Avenue and 12th Street. You can see it right there, and that is why the west portion of Alger is narrower than the east portion. And I should say these are Sanborn maps, these are fire insurance maps, and these were made across the country to sort of document the built environment, obviously for fire insurance. And maybe Laura can talk a little bit more about that. Yeah, so this is a beautiful little building. I love the ashlar masonry, local sandstone. The first actual school building that was meant to be a school building was the Little Red School, built in 1904, and it's on the left there. In 1909, a brick addition was built, and all grades attended that school through high school. Wonderful little building. With the Cody's growing population, a new high school was dedicated in 1922, and it was built to the north of these original buildings. And it was used as a high school until 1953, when it became a middle school and they built a different high school, and then it was torn down altogether in 1963. I know some of you went to this school. And here's a map of these. This is the entire sort of school block. So here we have the original schoolhouse down on the southeast corner. There's the 1922 high school. This is from 1952, so now it's a junior high school. Here's the next Cody High School and the West Side Grade School. It seems like in Wyoming there's perpetually a school being torn down or built. It's just never ending. The first Cody Library was built in 1906 with funds from the Women's Club, and it was a small one-room structure, 16 foot by 16 foot. It was instantly overcrowded, but at least they got something up. You can see how tiny this building is. In 1916, the Cody Carnegie Library building was constructed at the same location. And this is just, it's such a shame that this building doesn't exist anymore. It's so beautiful. There you can see the footprint. Here's the interior photos. I think we have a nice library now up on the hill, but have so much more character. But they needed place more space to grow, and this building just didn't offer that. In 1963, the Carnegie Library was torn down for this larger structure, and this new building was used as a library until 2008, when the library moved up to the hill, and this is now Millstone Pizza. A little less reading goes on there these days. The first Presbyterian church was built in 1910 on the northeast corner of Beck and 11th Street. It's on the same block as the Irma, just on the opposite end of the block there. By the late 1960s, the church had sort of outgrown this location, and it was dismantled, and in 1968, a new church was built on the southeast side of town. Here's some guys on the steps of the old Presbyterian church, and you can also see, I would just point out the Beck mansion right there and the Hargraves house. This house is still standing. The Beck house is gone. The Catholic Church St. Anthony's Catholic Church was built on Sheridan Avenue on the courthouse block in 1914. And as you can see, it was just a small church. It was a mission church, so it didn't even have a resident pastor or priest, I guess, until 1944. There you can see it. And this was here for a while after a new church was built over on Monument Street over here in 1954. And this old church served county offices. It was the office of the Cody Park County Extension Office until in 1985 it was moved to Meeteetse, and now it's the St. Teresa's Catholic Church. This is a great example of reusing historic buildings, just moving them around and not destroying them outright. Not every building you can do this with, like, right? If they wanted to tear down the Irma, you can't really pick it up and move it, but a building like this you can. Wolfville Hall was built in the 1920s as a large community dance venue. And it was constructed to resemble kind of an old frontier fort. It was on the 1400 block of Sheridan Avenue, kind of where Beta Coffee House and Domino's is. So there you can see it. We don't have a lot of great photos of that. You can see it right there. You can see that wooden facade. Just a big open auditorium inside meant for dances and parties. I know Terry partied there a lot. Oh, shoot. Let's see here. It burned on July 15th, 1940. And you sometimes see references to Wolfville even after this thing burns because people had such great memories of partying all night in this place. So then they dress up the Cody Auditorium as Wolfville because they miss the old Wolfville Hall. The Coe Memorial Hospital was dedicated in 1940 in honor of W.R. Coe, an important Cody philanthropist who had libraries named after him at Yale and down at the University of Wyoming, owned the Hoodoo Ranch out on Carter Mountain. In 1948, the building was expanded with the addition of a second story and more wards. And this modernized and enlarged building was renamed the Cody Hospital. And it was demolished in 1982 after it had been condemned a few times. And this is an example of, like, maybe we don't want to preserve this because we want to have a modern hospital. Like, that's good for the community to have the best health care available. But the hospital is still at the same location. Old Damaris Hotel. Charles Damaris came to the Bighorn Basin from Montana in 1883, and he settled at the hot springs on the Stinking Water, now called the Shoshone River. Damaris built this hotel in 1901 and developed the area into a little health spa. They tried to bottle this natural mineral water, kind of with more or less success. It later became the Canyon Hotel. Obviously, people got confused about that name. So in 1946, it was named the Bronze Boot Bar. And this place burned to the ground in 1968. Again, I know a lot of you went down there and had too many drinks over that sketchy bridge, which, yeah. The Damaris Hot Springs became a popular place for swimming, picnicking, socializing, and it was always, when I read stories, it's always really cold. It was always really cold for people to swim down there. People would say your body would be warm, but your head sticking out of the water would have icicles on it. So they built this bathhouse. The only problem with that is the fumes from the springs would eat into your eyes, so then they knocked off the ceiling of this. This was built in 1923. And many young people learned to swim down here. It's popular. Needle bath springs because the bubbles from the springs would feel like needles. You would know more than I would. This place was sold to Kit Cody in 1967. He sort of used that area down by the river to launch his float trips. And he leased the actual springs, although not much really happened with it, besides vandalism and people going down there to drink and hang out. Again, a lot of guilty people in here. I can see you, and I know you did bad things down at the springs. This building flooded in 1981, and it kind of just fell into disrepair, and the old Bronze Boot Bridge was nasty, and it flooded a few times, and it was kind of really sketchy. And the town and the Damaris Springs Protection Association had conversations and tried their best to figure out what could be done with the springs. But in the end, Kit Cody sold it to Trail Creek Ranch in 1993, and now you can't go there. And just because people get confused, that was the old Bronze Boot down by the river. The new Bronze Boot nightclub was up on the hill, which opened in 1966, right here. And this later became Guys on the Terrace. And the Bronze Boot Motel and Spa opened in 1969. It's kind of the location where Muscle Car Motors is. Here you can see the old Bronze Boot nightclub with that great sign there. And then the Bronze Boot Motel and Spa. They had pool, water slides, and all that fun stuff. And that concludes my portion of this. Sorry.
It sounds like you guys are having a lot of fun here in Cody with the hot springs and the Bronze Boot, etc. I'm going to talk about some commercial buildings of Cody. Now, I'm a new Codyite. I've been here for about a year and a half, so it's been fun to get to know the town through some of these historic properties. First, we have the Buffalo Bill Fur Farm, which was not too far from here. Let's see. Katie and Claude Brown opened their Buffalo Bill Fur Farm in 1947. They sold furs in addition to raising mink and foxes. And it sounds like there's a fox on display, or is that a mink on display at the Cody Heritage?
Cody Heritage Museum.
Yeah, a fox at the Cody Heritage Museum, so you can go check that one out too. They specialized in raising the platinum fox, a silver-colored phase of the red fox. Nearby Platinum Avenue was named to observe the Browns' commercial fur operations, which Brian just told me about. I live really near to there, and I was like, oh, that makes sense. The old showroom was demolished in 1997 to make way for the new Cody branch of the First National Bank. And here we have the Buffalo Bill Barn. William F. Cody opened the Buffalo Bill Barn in 1901. The livery business maintained a fleet of horses and wagons to transport travelers from the railroad depot to the town of Cody and into Yellowstone National Park. It was managed by Roy Myers, who was, for a time, also responsible for managing Buffalo Bill's T.E. Ranch. And in 1912, the barn was purchased by C.J. Siggins and John Kirkpatrick. So in the Park County Archives, there's a bunch of advertisements featuring the barn, and it's always like, under new management, no, under new management, no, under really new management. But they're all doing the same thing, and you can see that the advertisement for the barn, it had its name on the top. And then there's also a picture of them hog tying a buffalo there. So it sounds like they were also having fun as well. It was closed and demolished in 1918 when automobiles began to eclipse horse traffic. So let's see, talking about automobile traffic, this is the Burlington in Cody. So the Burlington Railroad decided to build a hotel at the station to accommodate railroad travelers. So they were discovering that these railroad travelers needed a place to stay, and they decided to build a hotel in 1922. But as early as 1917, there were rumors in newspapers of some hotel coming to town. And, this was a fancy hotel. People were excited to stay there. It had around 60 guest rooms and cost around $100,000 to build. So this opened in June of 1922 for railway passengers. And then in the 1930s, as automobile traffic is becoming, increasingly becoming part of Cody's tourism life, they also opened to automobile traffic as well. So in the early 1950s, it was torn down due to a declining number of railway passengers. This is Bud's Drive-In, and I was talking to my colleague Matt Frost about Bud's Drive-In and was getting super jealous of everyone who got to eat there because it sounds like it was super fun and had really good hamburgers. So Lester, Bud Jennings Ashley, was born in Minnesota, and he moved to Wyoming after World War II when he started working in the Oregon Basin oil fields. So he opened what we believe is the first drive-in in Wyoming, Bud's Drive-In. The original location was around Dairy Queen and moved to another location in the late 1950s with a more modern drive-in that opened in the 1970s. So Mac was telling me about the car hops and the ladies he would come out and take your order, and that just sounds like a lot of fun. And this is the Keystone Barn here. This was another commercial building with livery, and this sat in the location of where the Cody Auditorium is now. The barn was leased to various people. It had various owners, including Jack Morrison and Walter Wittes. So Walter is the most commonly named operator of the barn in the newspapers. He operated a livery, feed, and sack and stables in the barn. Here we have J.L. Burns and Company Wholesale Liquors, which became known as Family Liquors. And this was located nearby there. So I'm curious how many of you patronized Family Liquors. It sounds like there was a lot of places to drink in Cody back in the day. Bars and churches. You have something to do on Saturday night and Sunday morning. So this is Webster Chevrolet here, and in 1937, brothers Owen and Bud Webster purchased the old Yellowstone garage and opened Webster Chevrolet and Buick Company. The purchase price was $7,000, and they put another $6,500 in assets. So the prices of cars in 1937, you could buy a coupe for $752, a sedan for $836, and a pickup truck for only $680. So I wish that we could still pay those prices for cars. In 1948, they bought more property from Cassie Walters, and then they purchased a whole block in 1976. And when Bud died in 2005, his kids took over the business. So the Wells Fargo Bank is now where their location used to be. I'm going to pass this to Laura, who's going to talk about some houses of Cody.
I will try to use the machine wisely. All right, thanks guys. It's always amazing to me, even for photos I've already seen, how I can look at them differently and see new things in them. So thanks for showing us all that. So I'm going to talk about houses to sort of round out our group of lost landmarks. Hey, there we go. So one of the ways that I like to think about the houses in Cody is to look at old photographs, and there's a spot right up by where the LDS church is now. That is where many of the panorama photographs were taken of Cody, and so you can go up there today and have this similar angle. You can't see it as well because of the trees, but this photo was taken in 1905, and they're actually two parts of the same photo. 13th would be, let's not do that. So if you look on the center of the photo, there is the old Methodist church, the white building, which then for years was the bed and breakfast, and the family liquor store that Susan was just talking about is on the lower left, kind of. You can see the white ticker at the top, and then right to the left would be 13th, and then 13th would take up there, and then that's the Keystone Barn that Susan was talking about, and then on the far left is the Irma Hotel. And you notice at this point that there are hardly any trees, but you can still see Hart Mountain very clearly, and McCullough Peaks, and off into the distance. And for a long time, and still to a certain extent today, the residential and the commercial areas were mixed. And so we see a lot of houses in the same areas where we see stores and rooming houses and hotels, and so it's one of the interesting things I think about just the development of the town. So this photo, which is probably not from 1912, it's probably more like 1908, based on some areas that have burned down. But you can, this would be the same angle if 13th had, if I hadn't cut that out of there. You can see the Heart Mountain Hotel, which is straight down 13th, and then on the right, and about a block in, you can see the Irma far to the left. You can see that Keystone Barn. You can see a lot of the different residences and houses. And if you're interested in old houses in Cody, you probably have seen that they've changed a lot. People have added to them through the years. And so this is one of the ways that we can sort of pay attention to some of those changes as well. Now in this photo, which is from 1920, you see especially on the edges, on the far right and the far left, you see a lot more housing sort of clusters or development, and especially the one on the far right, so that would be on the other side of where the canal was. That's now where Alger Street is. That's been filled in, and you see a lot more houses that have been built into that area. So this is, Brian was talking about these Sanborn maps or fire insurance maps, and they are maps that are available across the country for every city and most small towns, because people wanted to insure their property in case of fire, and fire did happen a lot. And so, so this was one of the ways that people could get money back if something happened, and it records what kind of structures were in different towns and cities, what they were made out of, if they were made out of brick or wood, if they had tile or shingles, different kinds of frames. So I took all of the photos from the images from 1907 and combined them into one map. And so this is essentially what the city of Cody looked like in 1907. And these are the residences that were there at that time. The polygons or the rectangles in yellow are houses, and the ones that are in orange are boarding houses or rooms for rent, or things that today many of those have been converted into residences if they're still there. You'll see I put the Irma there in pink just to give you a reference point there. And you see the south end, the lower end, and where it says Alger, the canal is still going through town there. So the red rectangles are the buildings that are no longer there, the houses. So out of approximately 250 original houses in Cody, 110 are no longer there. And they're not there for a variety of reasons, but just in terms of sort of the facts of the matter, that's what we have to work with for if we're looking for the original sort of 1907 buildings in Cody. And some of these buildings could have been moved as well. You'd have to go to the county courthouse to look more into the individual property ownership records, but it's roughly accurate. So this is the 1912 map, the same map, and here we have 225 houses, so we actually have fewer houses, but I think this is because a lot of those earlier houses were right in the downtown area that then were taken down to build more stores and businesses and things like that, and of those, about 100 are no longer there. And some of those are the same ones, but just to give you an idea, and you can really see in certain neighborhoods or certain blocks or lots were affected more than others, and certainly the area around Sheridan as the downtown became more a destination for shopping and hotels and 1912 bars. That you see the residences were torn down in order to make room for the development of the sort of more of a commercial district. And then this is 1931, and so the town had grown by then, but I just included the same area just for consistency. And now you really can see how the neighborhoods have progressed. So we have about 350 homes in this area of it's the original old town and a couple of the early additions, and of those, about 110 are no longer there. So just in terms of historic preservation, looking at what is in Cody still, what was here then, being able to track that is and people who are just interested in history in general. I think this is really interesting. You can see that there are certain neighborhoods that seem to have been fairly stable through time and have not had a lot of demolition or replacements. And again, the area around Sheridan is more likely to have been impacted. And you could go into any one of those blocks and look into that in more detail, like this one. So this is a block, the rectangle in pink is the Hart Mountain Inn, and on the left is the 1907 map, and on the right is the 1931 map. And you see at this point, this is also where the liquor store was. You also see that there's a lot of, there's rooms for rent, there is a lot of things related to the livery. There's a lot of the horse stables over here. There's blacksmiths, there's repair, there's things for wagon shops, and then on the north side and on the south side there are some residents, there's some stables, and it's really a mixture. This is the block where Trailhead Pizza is today, and Napa Auto Store. And today the only things that are still there is the Hart Mountain Inn, and then the one residence which is in yellow with the stable/garage which is in green. And so if we're documenting just sort of change in history in Cody in this particular block, you can see that there are only 3 structures essentially out of everything that was there. We still have great history, we have great photographs. Sometimes we have more documentation than others, but I think this is just an interesting example. I also own the house in yellow, so it is also a personal interest of mine between Beck and Alger. And if you remember this photo I showed you at the beginning, this is of my house. So the little house, I could probably just point with, no. So the little house like right in front of me there, the little square house is the house that still exists, and you can see the stable in the back. I love this because you really can see the mixed use of horses and chicken coops and all sorts of the combination of sort of what today we would call urban horticulture. And you can see the old Methodist church, and you can see laundry hanging on the line. So this was a photo that was taken by Samuel Knight from the University of Wyoming, or his records are at the University of Wyoming in 1905. But you can really get a good idea of what some of those early buildings in general looked like, including these houses. So just a particular example of where Cody has been and where it's going, and sort of what buildings are. Oh, God dang it! It's that escape. Good thing I've done this before. Oh, I can't. That pointer, I can't. I'm afraid to use it. Well, it's kind of silly.
Right down here.
Right. So today it just looks. It's just the living room, and they've expanded. They expanded out to the back. They took that barn and they moved it perpendicular, so it's this way now. It's like many of the alley houses. So it's but you can tell where the original stable was because it has the large windows for opening up the window for your cattle or probably not cattle, horses. I've also always been interested in what's going on directly behind that, because it looks like there's like a bleacher that's been set up. There's a man sitting there, and I'm wondering if there was an auction or I haven't been able to quite figure that out. And then you see there's the horse-drawn carriage, and you can see exactly where that kind of windy road was. It wasn't just there's Beck and then there's Sheridan. They're clearly kind of taking these other kind of roads to places too. And now a lot of those, what look almost like, I don't know, we would have called them shanty houses, when I was growing up, but those little sort of rectangular sheds, a lot of those are still there and are used as utility buildings and as guest houses, AKA Airbnb houses today. So yeah, I was really amazed that the American Heritage Center has this set of photos. And if anyone knows what's going on with the man sitting at the...
My uncle thinks it's his father.
Oh, I didn't know.
Well, I mean,
And it could be.
it could be.
It could be.
Yeah, maybe it's a horse sale. I don't know. I mean, something.
Can you show us where it is?
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Oh, is it just the center one?
Pull the trigger.
Oh, I'm sorry. So here's the house, here's the stable, and here is a man sitting at a framed bleacher or something. And I can't think that that's permanent. That seems like that would be a temporary thing built for something going on along with this barn here. Here's the liquor store here. Heart Mountain Inn would be right here. Here's a Methodist church. So, yeah, here's the laundry. Here's horses here. A row of trees and a row of trees. And so now you can't see down there because the tree line is pretty much blocks that. And all of these, except for these two buildings, all of the rest of these are gone. Sorry about that. So I have just a couple examples of some of the interesting landmark houses that are no longer in Cody. So the stone house, which was the George and Daisy Beck house, which was on the corner of 11th and Rumsey, and many of these nice houses were on Rumsey and are gone today. This was built in 1909. It was torn down in 1966. And these are the apartments that are behind Millstone Pizza today, but would have been one of the larger. This time was also, there was not very many stone houses. Most of the houses were frame houses. There was only a few stone, which Brian and I were talking about. That interesting because many of the stores were made out of stone and masonry, so I'm not sure why more houses weren't as well, but this was one of the few that was. Here's the Jacob Schwab. How do you pronounce his name? Schwab. I knew you guys. House, which is also on Rumsey, on the corner of 14th and Rumsey, was built while he was a governor between 1905 and 1913, and it burned down at some point. The house on the pink house is the house that's there now, but the original owner of the Cody Trading Company, his house is no longer there. It seems like a nice two-story house. The Andy Martin house. This is another two-story house, also on Rumsey, in between 13th and 14th. Was built in 1905 and was torn down in 2015. And now we're starting to see people's dismay about the dismantling of some of these old houses and structures and things like that. And there was a lot of articles in the paper, and people were concerned about, well, how do we maybe preserve some of these old houses? And this is now the parking lot for City Hall. And in fact, you can see City Hall here when the house was still there. But it was sold, and then it was demoed, and so that's no longer there anymore. Every once in a while, people can move these houses, like Brian was saying, with the what was it?
The Catholic Church.
Yeah, St. Anthony's, right. So this is what's known as the Cody home, the two-story home that was on the corner of Beck and 12th. And this was the home for many of the hotel employees from the Irma, and also for the Cody family while they were in town. So it was built in 1904. Right now, it's in it would have been in the parking lot, sort of by the smoke shop, and across from the bank, kitty corner from the Elks. But it was moved in 1974 and converted to a bed and breakfast, and so it is now in Robertson Street. And what I really like about this is the photo of them moving the house down the street. That must have been something to see. So the house is still there. It's just, or still around. It's just still not in the same location. And the last example I'll give is one that many people are aware of. Sometimes houses are moved and and we don't have that same, I guess, sort of happy ending. So Carolyn Lockhart House, which was also on Rumsey between 11th and 12th, the two-story house was built in 1904, and you can see the photo on the right, and then, so this is when they were building the Mason's Lodge, and you can see the old Episcopalian church there, and this, you see this like kind of half moon is the same as this right here, so that's that house, and this is Rumsey here, and this is after it got moved. So the Carolyn Lockhart house was moved in 1984, and for years was run as the Carolyn Lockhart Inn over on West Yellowstone, and many people loved it there and visited there and had very strong connections to it there. It was demolished in 2022 fairly rapidly. It was there, and then the lower photograph is from the Powell Tribune as it was being demolished. And so the original location is the parking lot sort of behind Sunlight Sports, but the location it was moved to was also demolished. And again, people had a lot of strong feelings about that. They wanted to know why it couldn't have been saved, what could have been done, why it wasn't on the National Register. Was there not a historic preservation commission out there to help with these issues? And so it's these types of examples that we are trying to be there as a resource, because as Brian said, private landowners really can do what they want with their property. That's the truth. But sometimes there also are opportunities where things could be moved, or where at least the public could have some sort of comment period, or maybe we could do better documentation, or maybe we could collect other stories, or maybe we could even reuse the materials. I grew up where my mom always wanted to do a new flower garden out of bricks. And so she'd say, where are some old bricks around here? I think I saw some bricks over by so-and-so's house, or I think we could go buy some somewhere. And, that concept, people, they want to have something of the past. And I think is something really special about sort of reusing old materials. And so even if in cases where things are demolished, maybe there might be opportunities where we could reuse some of the materials for a variety of things, even as simple as flower gardens or something like that. So we want the public to know that we do exist, that we are a resource in education that can help people with learning more about, sometimes there's tax benefits to having old houses, and also just so people have a group to talk to when these buildings get demolished, because there's so much just disappointment, I think, when that building got demolished, and I'm sure many of you are, were disappointed as well. And so that's a cautionary tale, I guess. Hopefully that does not happen as often, but that is sort of the lost landmarks of Cody.
Well, thank you, Laura and Brian. I really appreciate you guys being here with me today. Just some housekeeping notes. As Eric mentioned, Bob Richard is coming back in July to talk about the Frost and Richard families. And then in September, Brian is coming back to talk about the ranches of the South Fork. So can expect to see him again. I think we have just a few minutes for questions. So Eric, if you could pass the microphone around, but then that wouldn't leave us with a microphone up here. So. Okay, we'll use this one. If you do have a question, if you could speak into the microphone, it helps pick it up on the recording.
Any questions? Yes, sir.
Just
to come off of what you were just saying, out on Yellowstone, when they tore down the Lockhart B&B or whatever it was, just across the highway, we now have a similar situation with Cassie's supper club that's been around forever, and now there's some question about what's going to happen with the property. And I would hate to see a bulldozer come along and just tear it down and then nothing replacing it. Do you have any thoughts about what direction the town will go with that?
Well, Cassie's probably is not a good candidate for the National Register because it has been changed so many times. But I think we, as a town, would like to see it preserved because it does mean so much to so many people. It's possible that, I mean, the old bar, one of the old bars is now in the Rancho Chico, the New Mexican restaurant. So it's possible that if someone did decide that they wanted to tear the whole thing down, that we could, or the town could, the Historic Preservation Commission could work to document everything and potentially, keep the things we could keep, which is not really a good solution. But if someone buys it and they want to tear it down, we can offer resources and education and knowledge, but we don't have any other enforcement, and we wouldn't want to really, because people should be able to do what they want with their own property. But it's something that is, I think, on all of our minds. Cassie's?
Any other questions? Yes.
I'll just yell. How much interaction do you have with state SHPO on all this?
How much interaction do you have with the state SHPO?
For those of you who don't know the acronym SHPO, that's the State Historic Preservation Office, and every state has a State Historic Preservation Office, including Wyoming. And I'll let Brian or Laura answer that.
So we're a certified local government underneath the umbrella of the SHPO, and so we get regular emails from them about their heritage webinars that they do that we're invited to participate in. We are required to fill out an annual report about all of the activities that we have that then gets approved by the commissioners and sent to them so that they know what kind of activities we're doing. We as a group are thinking about modifying the Downtown Historic District nomination because I think that there are probably more buildings that weren't on the original list that could be, and also updates. There are certain buildings downtown that have been demolished. The Collier Building, 3 of those, the new Collier Building, 3 of those, of the 3 buildings that were taken down, 2 were on the National Register. And so we'd like to update that information, and that's something that we'll work with the SHPO closely on. We had 2 nominations in the last year, one for the Sage Creek Community Hall and the other for the Sage Creek Community Hall outside of Cody, and then the American Legion / Homesteader Museum in Powell that we successfully nominated for the National Register, and all of that went through the SHPO as well. So it's like any other local to state connection, I guess, that we could always work with them more, but I think that we know that they're a resource and that they have been helpful to us in our sort of endeavors here.
I'm curious what the situation is with the Downtown Historic District, because I'm under the impression that there was a new ordinance passed, that City Council was working on something in relation to the Downtown Historic District. Maybe you could enlighten me on that.
So in December and January, the City of Cody passed several new ordinances. Before that, they just didn't realize that they might need an ordinance for things that people might do. And so they just hadn't passed one. And since there were no ordinances, there was nothing precluding people from, it does not include demolition. It includes new construction. So now new buildings can be no more than 3 floors. They have to be 3 stories. They have to be of a certain color, but really just not bright pink or purple or something. They have to have a certain percentage of natural materials on the fronts, which means they couldn't be all glass. And so the city's trying to respect private property, but also create some guidelines for new construction. And in that, they also define that architectural district that Susan showed you the photo of, and that is in part because of their wanting to focus on some more historic preservation plans. In the future, we hope as a commission to work more with the city on the pre-demolition side of things, to potentially work with people before they tear things down, like the Cody dairy that was gone in like over the weekend, it seemed like, and we don't need public approval, but it would be nice if we at least had some public comments, or if we were able to, maybe some of those old buildings we don't have completely documented, or we have, oh right, we have a photo from 1940, but then in the 1980, but nothing recently, or someone going inside and documenting those things. So if nothing else, having the opportunity to better document things. And sometimes people stuff old newspapers, in the crevices. You could maybe just have the chance to sort of see what else might be preserved. But that's what the city is trying to balance, preservation versus development, I guess, in a way that they have never done, which I think is really great, but also to do it wisely. And we're hopefully we'll be there as the source of assistance if they want it.
How close are they to getting something like that in place? How close are they to getting something like that in place?
We've been talking to we've attended several of the city council meetings. All of those ordinances that I just mentioned for new construction have all been passed, and they are currently working with the state of Wyoming to so that they know legally if they asked for if a organization or individual asked for a demolition permit, how long they might stay that for a group to come in and document things, or to have a conversation with the developers. But it's something that the city the council is interested in, and is currently working out some of the legal ramifications for us to be able to assist them, I guess. But it's something currently in their, in their like the next couple months agenda, right?
The new building downtown, will the front of it fall under these laws?
No, no, I don't think so, because the designs were already approved before the December and January ordinances were passed, as my understanding.
That's disappointing.
More questions on the same type of subject. Do Powell and Matizzi have any sort of protection for their downtown historic areas?
Brian, why don't you answer this, since they asked that at the commissioners meeting?
Sure, I know Powell doesn't. Matizzi has its own historic preservation commission. I do not think it has a historic district or an architectural district like Cody is putting into place. I think there's a lot. No one's planning to build a massive 3-story building in Matizzi yet, but it will happen someday, right?
Here, let me.
Any other questions? All right. Yes, Fuzzy.
Are you working proactively with owners of historic buildings to talk to them about ideas for preservation, or ways they can at least keep the facades? And the other question is, are there grants available to help some of these people who own buildings that have apparently foundations that are rubble and would cost a lot to redo?
We are offering advice to people. We've had people come to us. So Nina Bathazar, who owns the Bartlett, is it the Bartlett building, the old Peters? She's been remodeling that building and has been working with the SHPO to apply for tax incentives to help help her with all the money that she's put into that building. It's easier for us when people come to us as opposed to us going to them. We've also talked about developing a walking tour of some of the a free walking tour of some of the historic buildings in Cody that people could, business owners could choose to participate in, which would also then be a starting point for a dialogue with private owners. And in terms of the question about Powell and Matisse versus Cody, the city of Cody came to us and asked if we might be of assistance to them. So if other towns had an interest, then we certainly would. But that's sort of, Cody's seen a lot more development and has had a lot more recent concerns about some of the demolition.
Any other questions?
In terms of grants, yes, there are grants. So I'm on the Wyoming Cultural Trust Fund. We just gave out over $600,000 of grant money earlier this week, and a lot of that was historic preservation projects around the state. So that money does exist, and through the state SHPO, they get money from the federal government to grant out to throughout the state, and I see Buzzy cringing because she knows what's going on. A lot of that federal money is drying up. So at this meeting with the state earlier this week, they are concerned at the state level that as that federal money dries up, it's going to impact the state SHPO office. A lot of those employees, although they're state employees, they're funded by federal funds, so they will go away. And the SHPO office might be a shell of what it was, which would have effects on Wyoming residents' ability to undertake historic preservation projects, like here in Cody is a great example. As those grants dry up, we'll see that impact as they trickle down or don't trickle down. Right now, the Wyoming Cultural Trust Fund, the grants that we give out are safe, but at the state level, that can always change. All that grant money could be taken back. So right now, yes, to answer Buzzy's question, there are monies to help with historic preservation projects, but that is not a given into the future.
All righty, thank you very much for coming, and we look forward to seeing you in July when Bob will discuss Ross and Richard.